Jacob, have you finished your homework? Melissa Wilson called out from the kitchen while preparing dinner. Her skilled hands chopped ingredients from the refrigerator with the precision that reflected her nursing background. Almost done. An energetic voice replied from the living room, making Melissa smile. Her 10-year-old son Jacob had grown into such a bright and honest child. She put down her knife and peered into the living room. Jacob's profile as he studied at the dining table was the spitting image of his father Michael, who had died in an accident 3 years ago. The same intense gaze, the same habit of pursing his lips slightly. A wave of both grief and nostalgia washed over her. "Mom, I don't understand this problem." Jacob pointed to his math workbook. Melissa sat down next to her son and began explaining gently. Life as a single mother working and raising her son wasn't easy. But these moments spent with Jacob were her greatest comfort. The doorbell rang. "Oh, that must be Grandma." Melissa's expression clouded slightly. Her mother-in-law, Carol Wilson, was outwardly a cultured and elegant woman. A wealthy widow living in Cleveland's upscale neighborhood, she was actively involved in Presbyterian church activities and charity events. "Jacob. Grandma's here." When Melissa opened the door, there stood Carol in her refined attire, holding a shopping bag from a luxury brand. "Hello, Melissa." Carol's voice was soft, but her eyes constantly appraised Melissa as if sizing her up. "Grandma." As Jacob ran over, Carol's expression transformed completely. Her eyes filled with boundless love as she looked at her grandson. "Oh, Jacob. Grandma's precious boy." Carol hugged Jacob and held out the shopping bag. "Here's a present for you. You wanted that new gaming system, didn't you?" "Wow. Thank you, Grandma." Melissa frowned. She had just recently turned down her son's request for being too expensive. Carol knew this and was deliberately doing this. "Carol, such an expensive gift." "It's fine, Melissa. He's my only grandson after all." Carol's words carried their usual sarcastic undertone, a silent attack saying, "I can easily afford what you can't give him." Melissa swallowed a deep sigh. In the 3 years since losing her husband, Carol's well-intentioned pressure had gradually intensified. Lately, she had been increasingly suggesting, "Why don't you move in with me? It would be better for Jacob's education." Then Carol abruptly announced, "Oh yes, I have a wonderful surprise." She produced an envelope with a triumphant expression. "For Jacob's birthday next month, let's all take a trip to Hawaii. 1 week. I've already made the reservations." In the airport lobby, Carol elegantly removed her sunglasses. The week-long stay in Hawaii had been a dream vacation on the surface. A luxurious suite at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, meals at high-end restaurants, Pearl Harbor tours, graceful afternoons at Waikiki Beach. But Melissa's heart hadn't known a moment's peace. "Jacob, this swimsuit suits you better. The restaurant you chose won't suit Jacob's tastes, Melissa. Being a single mother must be hard. For Jacob's sake, you should consider moving to my house." Each of Carol's words cut into her heart. The final dinner was especially unbearable. "Melissa, are you really thinking about Jacob's future? At my house, he could attend a top private school. Carol raised her voice at the upscale Waikiki restaurant, not caring about the other diners. Jacob uncomfortably stared down at his new gaming device's screen. "Mom, are we checked in yet?" Jacob asked restlessly in the airport lobby. Throughout the week, her son's eyes had sparkled at Grandma's parade of lavish gifts. The expensive gaming system, designer clothes, latest smartwatch. It was as if Carol was trying to buy Jacob's heart with an avalanche of presents. "Soon, dear." Melissa gently stroked her son's head. Finally going home. This thought alone kept her going. Their small house in Cleveland. Modest but filled with love. "Next customer, please." After completing check-in, the three headed toward security. The Sunday afternoon airport was bustling with business travelers and tourists. Families in Hawaiian shirts, businessmen in suits, excited children. Amidst the chaos, Melissa felt an odd sense of unease. "Oh, Melissa." While waiting in line at the security checkpoint, Carol addressed her with a meaningful tone. Her eyes held a different light than usual. "Are you really fine with things as they are? On a single mother's salary, you can't give Jacob what he needs." "I could." That's when it happened. Suddenly, a piercing alarm rang out. "Please wait a moment, ma'am." A security officer approached with a tense expression. "Could you open that backpack, please?" They pointed to Jacob's blue backpack. Melissa nodded in confusion, her heart racing and hands trembling. Surrounding passengers turned curious eyes their way. Some even took out their phones. Melissa held Jacob's hand and reached for the backpack's zipper. Cold sweat dampened her palm. The contents came out one by one. Math textbook. T-shirt bought at a Hawaiian shop. The new gaming device from Carol. And then. This is. The blood drained from Melissa's face. A black metal object. Unmistakably the shape of a handgun. "No. That's not mine." Jacob began crying out. His voice echoed through the airport lobby. "Mom, I don't know anything about this. I didn't put it there." Passers-by stopped at the 10-year-old boy's screams. In an instant, multiple security staff surrounded them. Men and women in uniform took positions in a circle. "Please come with us." The voice was cold and resolute. There was no escape. Melissa held her trembling son, desperately trying to understand the situation. How? Why? Who? Her mind went blank. Glancing sideways, she saw Carol standing there. Her expression made Melissa freeze. A faint smile played on her mother-in-law's lips. A smile full of superiority and triumph. "My, how troubling. Not knowing what your child is carrying around." Her voice carried a sarcastic tone, as if a long-planned scheme had finally borne fruit. However, that arrogant expression didn't last long. "I'm Greg Johnson, Senior Security Officer." A man in a suit appeared and announced in a stern voice. "We'll be conducting fingerprint analysis on this gun. We'll need to take everyone's fingerprints." At that moment, the color drained from Carol's face. Her elegant mask crumbled audibly. "Wait. That's not necessary." Her agitation was obvious. Too obvious. In Melissa's mind, all the pieces started falling into place. Carol's strange outings after arriving in Hawaii. Her fixation with Jacob's bag. And now, this reaction. Could it be? The airport police interrogation room was a stark space with white walls and cold metal chairs. Melissa took a sip from a water bottle with trembling hands. Across from her sat Detective Detmer. The female detective's stern gaze held a hint of maternal gentleness. Please calm down and tell me everything from the beginning. Melissa took a deep breath and began speaking slowly. I don't understand any of this. Jacob would never do something like this. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She couldn't get the image of her son being questioned in another room out of her head. Your son is speaking with a specialized child psychologist in another room. Don't worry. Detective Detmer's words brought slight relief. But the next question made Melissa tense up again. Could you tell me more about your relationship with your mother-in-law? Memories flashed through her mind like a film reel. Michael's accident 3 years ago. Carol's cold stare at the funeral. And the gradually increasing interference. Carol played the perfect mother-in-law on the surface. At church gatherings, PTA meetings, everyone called her such a wonderful person. Melissa's voice caught. But when we were alone, she would always blame me. Saying, you couldn't make Michael happy, and, you're raising Jacob wrong. In the adjacent room, weapons expert Craig Morrison carefully examined the handgun. His 50 years of experience revealed crucial evidence one after another. It's a small revolver. The serial number has been filed off, but... He continued while shining a special light. This is a recent removal. And clearly amateur work. Not handled by a professional. Another expert team meticulously examined Jacob's bag. They shone UV lights, checking each fiber. Then came the decisive discovery. The bag's lining has been cleverly cut. The gun appears to have been inserted through this slit. Evidence bags were filled one after another. Among them was a torn receipt found in Carol's handbag. The name of a suspicious shop in a Hawaii back alley. Dated the day after arrival. Meanwhile, hotel security camera footage had been retrieved. It showed Carol sneaking out of the hotel early morning. And hours later, her unnatural movements as she returned, clearly trying to hide something. Detective Detmer headed to Carol's interrogation room with all the evidence. Carol, in her luxury brand suit, was now a shadow of herself. Her makeup smeared, hair disheveled. Mrs. Carol Wilson. Detective Detmer began in a cool voice. Yesterday morning, you left the hotel. And you made a purchase at this establishment. The detective's hand hung heavily in the air as she showed the receipt. Carol's lips trembled. I didn't. Your fingerprints were found on the gun. Hotel security cameras also recorded your suspicious behavior. Tears welled up in Carol's cornered eyes. But they weren't tears of regret. Are you saying I'm wrong? Her voice suddenly rose. I was only thinking of Jacob. He's the only male heir to the Wilson family. You think planting a gun in a child's bag is good for your grandson? You don't understand. Carol raised her voice. Her face no longer held any trace of the refined lady. Melissa isn't worthy. I can't trust her with my son or Jacob. So I. And then, the entire plan was revealed. Secretly buying the gun, slipping it into Jacob's bag. Having it discovered at the airport to prove Melissa's lack of parental capability. Then working with the courts to take custody. Everything had been meticulously planned. Jacob should be raised by me. In my house, in a proper environment. Carol's confession reached Melissa through the monitor in the next room. She listened silently, tears flowing. Why? A faint voice escaped. Why would you do something like this? Detective Detmer announced matter-of-factly. Mrs. Carol Wilson, you are under arrest for illegal weapon possession, endangering a minor, and evidence tampering. The next morning, Melissa quietly opened her son's bedroom door. Jacob, are you awake? The small figure curled up on the bed slowly moved. Her son looked up at her with puffy eyes, tear stains still visible on his cheeks. Melissa sat next to him, gently stroking his hair. Did you have a bad dream? A small nod answered her. It's okay. Mama will protect you. Just then, her cell phone rang. An unknown number. As Melissa nervously answered, a mechanical voice spoke. This is Cleveland Detention Center. Mrs. Carol Wilson would like to speak with you. Melissa's body tensed. As she was about to refuse, Jacob said in a small voice. Mom, I don't want to see Grandma. Her son's words solidified Melissa's resolve. However, Melissa, please. Just once. Carol's voice through the receiver had lost its former haughtiness. Melissa took a deep breath. I request my lawyer be present. Melissa entered the detention center's visiting room with her lawyer, Lisa Chen. Carol, wearing an orange prison uniform, looked like a different person. Yet something still burned in the depths of her eyes. What do you want? Melissa's voice was ice cold. I want you to understand my feelings. Carol touched the water glass before her with trembling hands. Jacob is a special child. The only male heir to the Wilson family. He needs proper education and environment. You can't provide that. So you try to make my son a criminal. Melissa's voice grew stronger. Anger welled up. That's not it. Just what? You planted a gun in my son's bag to take custody from me. Isn't that right? Carol's expression twisted. You don't understand. On a single mother's salary, you can't give Jacob anything he needs. I have assets. The mansion in Brecksville Heights, investment trusts, art collections. They were all supposed to be Jacob's. Melissa laughed coldly. What he needs. You're the one who doesn't understand what's really needed. The heavy air in the visiting room settled between them like sediment. Do you know? Melissa began speaking quietly but firmly. The police uncovered all your past actions. Even before Michael's wedding, you were trying to tear us apart. Carol's face turned pale. The baseless rumors to friends. Anonymous reports to my workplace. It was all you. And after Michael died, you tried to corner me. But it's over now. Suddenly, Carol raised her voice. Are you saying I'm wrong? Michael chose the wrong woman. I can't trust the Wilson family heir to someone of your low breeding. In that moment, all masks fell away. Hatred and madness swirled in Carol's eyes. This meeting is over. Lisa Chen announced calmly. Wait. Melissa, I have money. I'll pay anything. So. Goodbye, Carol. Melissa stood and turned her back. Her back looked stronger and more dignified than ever before. The next week in court, Carol's sentence was pronounced. Defendant Carol Wilson. For the crimes of illegal weapon possession, endangering a minor, and evidence tampering, you are sentenced to 4 years in prison, with 2 years suspended. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom. However, there are conditions. Mandatory psychological therapy, and a restraining order prohibiting you from coming within 100 yards of Melissa Wilson and Jacob Wilson. Carol collapsed into her chair. After the sentencing, as they descended the courthouse steps, Carol threw out her final words. Are you satisfied? Ruining my life. Melissa turned back and quietly answered. You chose this yourself. You destroyed your own life with hatred and the desire to control. But we will move forward. On the way to the car, Jacob asked in a small voice. Mom, will Grandma not come anymore? Melissa squeezed her son's hand. The warm spring sunlight enveloped them. No, she won't come anymore. Our new life starts now. Will we be okay, just us? We'll be fine. Melissa looked up at the sky. For the first time in a long while, a genuine smile spread across her face. We have love. That's the most important thing. The church bells rang gently in the twilight cityscape. A new step for mother and son was surely beginning. The autumn in Cleveland was exceptionally beautiful that year. Maple and oak leaves turned red, coloring the streets of Shaker Heights. 6 months had passed since the incident, and Melissa and Jacob's life was moving forward slowly but surely. Jacob, don't forget your lunch. Melissa called from the kitchen. The anxiety and tension that once marked her voice had almost disappeared. I know, Mom. Jacob replied energetically, wearing his new backpack. After the incident, he had transferred schools. He was now a regular player on the soccer team. Is Coach David coming to watch practice today? Melissa's face softened at her son's words. Dr. David Cohen, a pediatrician, had gradually become part of their lives. Weekend picnics, Jacob's soccer games. The accumulation of these small daily moments had been healing their emotional wounds. Yes, he said he'd stop by after work. Watching her son's back as he headed to the door, Melissa said a silent prayer of thanks. Therapy sessions were now just once a month. Jacob's nightmares had become rare. Melissa continued her work at the hospital. Her colleagues maintained their unwavering support even after the incident. In particular, her interactions with pediatric patients and their families in particular had become her emotional support. Melissa. She turned at the voice in the hallway. It was David. I'm looking forward to practice today. I heard Jacob's getting really good. His gentle smile warmed Melissa's heart. David had never rushed things, always staying by their side at their own pace. "Thank you, really." "For what?" David tilted his head playfully. The gesture made Melissa smile. Meanwhile, in the mansion in Brecksville Heights, Carol sat alone in the oversized living room. Expensive furniture, artwork. But now they only emphasized her solitude. "Madam Wilson, your meal is ready." The maid Martha called out. But Carol didn't answer. In her hands was a tarnished silver photo frame containing a picture of Michael and Jacob. "My bloodline." She spoke to the photograph with vacant eyes. On the table sat a dinner setting for one. The luxurious roast beef tasted like ashes to her. She reached for the phone. But the restraining order was still in effect. Her hand trembled and stopped before touching the receiver. Outside the window, snow had begun to fall. Christmas was approaching. At Melissa's house, they were decorating the tree in front of the fireplace. David had come to help. "How about putting this star here?" David gave Jacob a shoulder ride to place the star on top of the tree. "Perfect," Jacob shouted with a beaming smile. "Hey Mom, what do you want for a present?" Her son held out a handmade card. Written in childish letters were the words, "To the strongest mom in the world. Having you here with me. That's my greatest present." Melissa hugged her son. David watched them quietly. In his pocket was a small jewelry box. But he felt it wasn't time yet. This family needed a little more time. That night, Jacob had a dream for the first time in a while. But it wasn't a frightening dream anymore. "Mom, you know what? Dad was in my dream today," Jacob happily told her during breakfast. "Dad said, 'Jacob, you've grown strong.'" Melissa gently stroked her son's head. It felt like Michael's photo was watching over them from the shelf in the living room. At dusk, Carol sat in front of the phone again. She reached for the receiver, then quickly withdrew her hand. The meaningless gesture repeated itself. "I wasn't wrong." But her voice no longer held any conviction. Snowflakes silently accumulated on the window pane. The city's illuminations began to emit their warm glow. A new year was just around the corner.